started Cecily's Organics for two main reasons. Firstly, I noticed that in my profession, I started to look up the ingredients of products, and the products had so many things in there that were cancer causing. You have shampoos and conditioners that we use on a daily basis that are really not good for the hair, they're not good for the body. So I began to do research, and as I was looking up ingredients to some of my favorite shampoos, and I was thinking, man, how can I find the organic version of maybe this ingredient? And so as I began to look those ingredients up, I realized that there was no organic version of it because it was really an awful ingredient and things that if you use over long periods of time will make you sick. So I said, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So I ended up beginning to do research, and I do have a line of shampoos and conditioners coming out that I'm working on next. The very first thing that I started with was a growth oil, because I did notice as well in the beauty supplies there were lots of oils, but there may have been just a few ingredients, or it'd be like 4 ingredients, and it'll be some strange filler oil to make everything kind of work together. And so I said, man, there's not really, there's things out there, but I want something that my clients can get a hold of and be able to use and enjoy, and without fear of dying, basically. so yeah, and also things that won't clog up their pores and their hair follicles and things like that. So that's how Cecily's Organics was born. That's actually the second reason I created it. The very first reason, though, is because years ago, when I was a young woman, fresh out on my own, I had my daughter at the time, I struggled with homelessness. And I was just in a place where my job that I was working wasn't paying enough. Actually, my daughter, I got a job at the daycare that she went to because I couldn't find, the daycare it just wasn't affordable. So because I couldn't find someone to keep her or someone that I trusted, I said, okay, maybe I can get a job at the daycare. So I get a job at the daycare, I'm attending beauty school, I'm trying to juggle all these things. And I'm like, man, if I could just finish school, then I could start doing hair, and then I can, quit at the daycare, and then I could afford real daycare for her and things like that. Well, I ended up, right before I was finishing school, my job at the daycare just was not cutting it. It was not paying enough. And it helped me with keeping my daughter, so she was in the same building as me. I got to see her every day. But I couldn't afford my rent. I could not afford my electricity, things like that. I don't even think I had cable at the time. I didn't have anything extra. It was just a rent and electricity type of situation. And so I said, wow, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I ended up losing that apartment. And it was rough. That season was rough. I lost my apartment. I lost my car. They came and repossessed my car, and I was in a pretty rough place. And I'll never forget the feeling like I'm not on drugs, I'm not out here doing crazy stuff, I don't drink, I'm just thinking adding up, how does this equal this? And it was interesting because I realized that how many people are out here just like me, where it's not their fault. And sometimes, it is a person's fault, but I know even for myself, the grace of God is enough for me because I've done some things, okay? And even with me making those mistakes, God came in and He forgave me and He restored me. Even from a young girl, I would see homeless people on the streets of Chicago, and I would say, man, I just want to help them. And so I remember even writing out a plan at 15 or 16, and I was just like, okay, so if I repurpose these motels, then I can put them, each person in a room, and they don't have to be on the street. So I've always had this in my heart, even before that, really young, when I didn't know I could come up with a nonprofit or come up with ways to help the homeless. I would see them and I would weep. And then it was to go through that experience myself, and to have to go through with my daughter, finding somewhere to live, and you sleep in the car for a time, and you have all this stuff, and you're just like, oh my gosh, it really, really pushed me. So beginning of 2019, I began to start the process of getting my 501c3 filed. After that, I said, okay, now how can I get funding to begin to help homeless people, single mothers off the street? And so I had a couple of ways for funding, but I also thought, people will give for a good cause, but they also want something in return. So truly, Cecily's Organics was born because I said, what can I give people in exchange for their money, for their help? And in return, instead of making this huge profit, then I would take a large percentage of what comes in and I would put it back into let's get someone a house. So my goal for 2022 is to actually buy and purchase my first property for someone and give it to them. A single mom in need, somebody like me, somebody who things just didn't add up. A plus B was Z, for them. The same as it was for me, and not only just single parents, but my nonprofit, my 501c3, the Kingdom umbrella, actually embodies just everything for the homeless altogether. So it's not just single parents, but the focus is them, because I literally just know exactly what they're feeling. I know exactly how they're feeling and what they're going through and what the children might be going through. I'm crying, I'm literally crying. Let's go. So I would love to make this About Me section about me, but I actually want to highlight 2 stories that really, really pushed me to go ahead and just start. So while living in Florida, I began to volunteer my time at it wasn't a homeless shelter, it was a place where the homeless could come and take showers and wash their laundry and things like that. So they had little hair stations set up, and so I said, okay, I can go and do some hair there, cut some hair a few days a week for the homeless. But there was one lady who came across my chair and she wanted her hair cut, and she asked if I could cut her son's hair, and I said sure. And so as we began to talk, I'm listening to her. She sounds like me. She sounds clear-headed. She sounds normal. She sounds like a woman who just had kind of fallen into hard times. Well, I found out that she has 2 sons, and they were living in their car in the parking lot of a Walmart. They just parked in Walmart, and then she would send them to school, and they would shower in the locker room, and then repeat. And she worked at Sears, but she just wasn't making enough to afford house. I thought about her and I said, wow, okay. And so around that same time, I heard another story. And this one I could relate to because I was in another situation where I had to live in a hotel for some time and with my daughter. And I heard another story of a woman whose son they were living in an extended stay hotel, and her son, who was the oldest of 2 boys, actually wrote a letter saying, hopefully this will help you, Mom, or something like that, to, I won't be a burden on you. And he goes and jumps in front of a train. And the way that story just affected my heart. This mother, she gets on Facebook or goes live or something right after, and the love and support that pour into her just begin to flood. She's off the street now. She's not in the hotel. Her and her remaining son are okay. But one of her sons had to die for this to happen. And here's my heart for my organic product line, for everything that I'm doing as far as my 501c3 and all of that. My heart is that we don't have to wait until tragedy happens. My heart is that we could do something now instead of waiting until tragedy happens to move. We don't, you know, people die and then the world is up in arms like, oh, we love them, we really did cherish them, and it's like, but did you show them while they were here? You know, sometimes we can become so suspicious and so critical that we miss out that God, you know, He wants us to do something in the earth, and don't worry about if someone is gonna misuse or abuse or whatever. But sometimes we just need to be in a position to give and use our discernment, but not into the point where we're suspicious, where we don't do anything for anybody because, oh, they're gonna misuse it. It's almost like someone saying, well, I'm not gonna give my offerings and my tithes to church because they're gonna go buy a Rolls Royce. You know, it's a little meme out now that's like, drink water and mind my business. As long as, here's the thing, here's the connection here. As long as here's God giving me a command, so it's a connection from here to here, and then from me to the church that I give my money to. Now, from there's also a connection from that pastor to back to God, right? It's not my business what's going on there, but it is my business what's going on here. So I say that to say, we do what God tells us to do, and we let Him worry about the rest. You see what I'm saying? So all of that together, this is Cecily's Organics. I am Cecily. This is my heart behind the product line. There are more products coming down the pipe. There's more to do in the earth. This is me standing up and saying, I'm not going to lay down and take what has been going on our planet, in our earth. I'm not taking it anymore. I'm going to do my part to add to and add value to what's happening in the earth and not take away from. And it also means I'm standing up to fear. I'm standing up to the things that have been trying to hold me back, and I'm coming for it. And it's so interesting because the name Cecily's Organics is so anti what I would do, what I would have chosen. I literally would never have put myself out front, but I felt just super strong about saying, you know what, Cecily's Organics, because I'm Cecily, darn it, I'm here. So anyway, that's my story, and happy shopping. I hope you guys enjoy.